Hello, how are you doing? In this lecture, I'm going to explain some of the salient features of the Constitution of 1956, which was our first constitution. It was promulgated on 23rd of March 1956. But before explaining the features, let me just very briefly discuss some of the reasons or the challenges that delayed the constitution making in Pakistan. Let me also make some comparison with the Indian experience of constitution making, because both India and Pakistan got independence almost at the same time, though Pakistan celebrates its Independence Day on the 14th of August, whereas the India on the 15th of August. India was able to frame its first constitution in 1949, only 2 years after its independence, which was promulgated in 1950, whereas it took us almost 9 years to frame our first constitution. We need to keep it in our mind that both India and Pakistan adopted Indian Act of 1935 as their interim constitution, of course with certain amendments to make it compatible with the requirement of each country. India, though, had some challenges, but it was comparatively at an advantageous position because its leadership was a little more experienced. The leadership survived little longer. The political party, Indian National Congress, was comparatively more organized. The political party also had an experience of running the governmental affairs in different provinces and states even before the independence. And moreover, Indians were able to develop consensus on certain issues, like right from the day first, the Indians, they decided that India would be a secular state. Number two, they also decided that India would be a federation, of course a bit more centralized. And then finally they also agreed upon the parliamentary nature of their polity. Whereas in Pakistan, a situation was completely different. Our leadership did not survive longer. Our political party, that was the ruling party at that time, Muslim League, was more a mass movement, and it was very difficult for Muslim League to make a transition from a mass movement to a ruling party. Have virtually no experience of governance before the partition. The party was not very well organized, and then Pakistan also had to face some challenges, such as the rehabilitation of refugees, a poor infrastructure, the issue of resources, that also contributed in delaying the constitution making process. But the real formal challenges were different. Like Pakistan was an imbalanced federation where one part of the country or one federating unit was more populous than all other federating units put together. So that that imbalanced nature of the federation created a problem of 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 representation in the central legislature, because the East Bengal wanted representation on the basis of population, whereas the leaders from the smaller provinces, they wanted a different criterion for the representation in the central legislation. That delayed the constitution making too. There was another issue as well. Language controversy was also there. The people from East Pakistan, they wanted Bengali to be the national language of Pakistan, whereas the people from West Pakistan, especially from Punjab, they wanted Urdu to be the national language. So these two major issues delayed the constitution making in Pakistan. So when these two issues were resolved in 1954 and 1955, it became easier for the Second Constituent Assembly to frame the constitution within few months. So the Constitution of Pakistan was promulgated on 23rd of March 1956. It was a written constitution. A constitution of a country can be a written or unwritten, but most of the countries have written constitutions. A written constitution is positively made, and it is also properly codified. Like if you look at the Constitution of the United States, it was framed in a constitutional convention in 1787. The Constitution of Pakistan was framed by the Second Constituent Assembly in 1956. And then if you look at the Constitution of United States, it has 7 articles and 28 amendments. But if you look at the Constitution of Great Britain, it rather evolved over time. It was not framed by any constituent assembly or in any of the constitution convention, and it is not properly codified as well. It is rather mostly based on constitutional conventions. Okay, and then the Constitution of Pakistan was also a lengthy one, consisting of 234 articles. It was divided into 13 parts and 6 schedules. Some countries have a very brief constitution as well, like United States. There are only 7 articles and 28 amendments. It can easily be read in maybe 30 minutes. And again, the Constitution of Pakistan 1956 was partly rigid and partly flexible. Constitution can be divided into 2 types with respect to their amendment procedure. If a constitution can easily be amended, it is called flexible, like the Constitution of Great Britain. And if a constitution requires a difficult, a relatively more complicated, cumbersome procedure for its amendment, that constitution is called a rigid constitution. But if you look at the procedure for the amendment of the 1956 Constitution, though it was somewhat special, but it was neither too difficult nor too easy. Only the two-third majority of the members of the National Assembly was required to amend the constitution. It means it was partly rigid and partly flexible. Okay, then the Constitution of 1956 was a Bill of Rights.